I'm going to show you how I make a stick of molding out of a downloaded image from Rama Molding so that I can Photoshop a picture frame together. First I'm going to duplicate the layer. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, but this is how I do it. Now they're never exactly 45 degrees off, but it's close. So what I'll do is I'll turn it 45 degrees. I don't know if you saw how I did that, but I went to free transform, and up here at this angle bracket I just type in 45 and it turns it. Then I'll put some guidelines on. Let's put one at the top and one at the bottom, and then it's move that down just a little bit. I'm going to zoom in and see where I'm at so that I can go back and I can free transform if I see that it needs to move a little bit. Then I'll go along and check, and it looks like it's going along this bottom line pretty well. So I'll just move this down. You want to try to not have the white in, so if you come in 1 pixel so that that white is not showing, that's going to be better. Then you're just going to scroll along and make sure that you're inside those guidelines the whole time. Okay, we'll come up here and check. It looks like we're pretty good. Looks a little lighter over there, but let's go ahead and use this. Let me close these other images. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and crop this to our guidelines. As you can see, we're not going to the very edge. Typically the lighting is different on both sticks, and sometimes I like using the corner, but for this example we're just going to use this piece right here. Okay, and that's our molding. Whenever I save a molding, I always add the size in the file name. So this is 0.75 of an inch. So we're going to flatten this image, and then we're going to check the size in inches. The height should be 0.75. You never want to lose data, so we're going to change that resolution to 100. Still losing some. We'll go 200. No, let's do 150. It's not going to matter. It's going to be 100 when we're done with it. But for now, we're going with 100, so we still have our texture. I know it's a little pixelated, but this is how I do it. So then you're going to go to View. Actually, you're going to go to Filter, Other, Offset. Now, don't do anything with the vertical, just horizontal. And as you can see, as I move it towards the middle, some people like to write down how wide it is and do some math. I'm not doing that here. But you see the variation when the two come together. So we're just going to hit OK. We're going to take our spot healing brush tool, and sometimes this works just going over it like that. I'm just trying to bring the two together. It didn't work on that, so what I do is I come back over here. Instead of trying to let the system do it with content aware, just come over here where it's maybe right near where it's a little darker, and hold down the Alt to grab some of this color and bring it over here towards the edge of the darkness. So we're just going to move it in here, and it's going to kind of merge these colors together. And come up here and select this, and you'll see that it wants to bring the edge over. So we'll just take it to the edge, just bring it down like that. Unfortunately, I had it on replace. It needs to be on normal, and then it's going to blur better. So let's try that again from the beginning. We'll just select over here at the top so we know where our top is. We'll just kind of blur that together. Okay. That's not bad looking. I'll probably come in here and just get, well, something like that. It's not great, but it's going to work. It's going to work for what we're doing. I'm going to try one more time with this over here. I'm just going to get rid of where it's darker. This has actually become harder than expected for a video. Okay, so right now we have a 9.5 inch stick. Okay, you can take this and go to Edit, Define Pattern. You can name it whatever you want. Okay, and now what we can do is we can take this and say we're doing a 16 by 20 inch frame. I'm going to make the width, we're going to go to canvas size. We're just going to make the width 36 inches. Now we have a 36 inch long stick. We're going to go to Edit, Fill. You're in Patterns. You just go down to your newly made pattern. Hit OK. Now you have a stick that's 36 inches, and you can see that blob where we worked on it. Another way to do it is, if it's giving you trouble, just make your stick smaller, but then you don't have as much pattern. Now, if we're making a 16 by 20, and I'll go 16 by 20, I'm going to do a resolution of 100. I'm going to put guidelines on here just by dragging from the ruler. If you don't have your ruler on, you just go to Window. I think it's here. Might be on View. Yeah, it's under View. Just rulers. That's how you get your guidelines to come up, and they typically will jump to the edge as you're dragging it towards it. Now, because this is 3/4 of an inch, I imagine this is going to be a 1/4 of an inch lip on the molding. So I'll come up here to canvas size, and I'll add a 1/2 inch on each side, making this 17 by 21. And so now we have where the outside of our frame is. Take your frame and just throw it on. So you see that pattern, it's not a huge deal. Now, one thing that I didn't do is I didn't resize the molding, so I have to come back in here and do the molding at the proper resolution, which is 100. Okay, so now we have our molding. You can see how it overlaps a 1/4 of an inch. So I take my molding and I can move it on here, and I like having it to where it's longer so that I have more of a pattern. So we're going to duplicate this layer. Let's see, actually just come in here with the square tool, duplicate layer after right clicking, then right click on it again, free transform, right click on it again, rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. Put it where I want it, I hit enter, I do it again. Right click, duplicate layer, OK, right click, free transform, right click, 90 degrees clockwise. If you don't right click on the layer, it does something weird, so try to make sure you're on the layer, and then you can see the pattern. I can move it to where it's not exactly lined up on, like with the dark blob here. I'm going to move it around, and one more time, duplicate layer, free transform, 90 degrees, put it to the edge. Now I have a frame, but the corners are jacked, so now we're going to fix that. Right, and you can hit Control, the two little dots, semicolon, I think. Alright, so we're going to take these two layers, the edges, and we're going to put them together. We're going to put the top and bottom sticks together. So just take one layer, hold down Control, and you can select multiple layers at a time, right click on them, and you can merge the layers. So we're merging those two, and we're coming back and holding down Control, right click, merging these two layers. Now once these layers are merged, whatever layer's on top, that layer is going to be cut. And we have a lot of info outside of this box that we don't need, so we're going to go ahead and crop it real quick with delete cropped pixels checked, and you can see all this out here that we're deleting. So we crop it, and then we come back here to our top layer. We're going to go to this box tool, and you're gonna make a box, but you want to hold down Shift, and that's going to make a square box. So as you're holding down Shift, it makes a square box. Doesn't matter how big it is, but you release your mouse before you release Shift, and then you transform selection. Don't free transform. Transform selection, and you're going to go 45 degrees up here at the top again. Now we have a 45 degree selected with this square tool. I think it's called a rectangular marquee tool. Make sure you're on this new selection, and then you move inside. You move it by going inside the selection and then just holding it down, and then you can move it. You can also move it with the arrow keys, and then you just want to look at our guidelines and the edge and the corner. So you just want to make sure that it hits all three. Sometimes it's off by a pixel, but right now it's pretty much in the center, and then you hit the delete button, and that will delete that part of the layer. And then you just move your marquee tool over to the other corner, scroll in, do the same thing, delete, go down to the bottom and do the same thing. This gives you a nice virtual corner. Oops. Anytime I mess up, I just hit the Control Z button to go back, but I have it set up on my mouse so that I can do it real quick because I hit it a lot. You can see it's a little bit right there, but when you remove this, what it looks like is what a frame would look like. How the corners meet. This is not the best molding to use for this, but it looks real. That's what we're going for. Alright, now we're going to merge these together, so we just merge that down. Now we have a frame. Okay, and then we can go back and say we want to put a mat on here. You know how just keep going with this video. Let's put a 3-inch mat on here. So we're going to come in, we're holding down the shift key, and we're just going till we get close to 3-inch. So there we go. That's pretty much 3 inches. Go and I'll add some more guidelines, and I'll just drag this down to the other side. And that's our 3-inch mat. Now if you want to get complicated and okay, so if it doesn't click on here, my mouse is getting old, so I need to get a new one. So sometimes when I release, the mouse moves a little bit and throws something where it's not supposed to be. You just grab this tool up here, called the pointer tool, and then you hover over the guideline. It'll make that symbol, and you can just drag it down to where it needs to be. But if you try to use this pointer tool to move this box, it's going to cut stuff off, and you don't want that. So you always move it with this. Now you can do a double mat if you want to come in here and say your mat is a 1/4 of an inch. That'd be 0.25. Typically I do it smaller than that. So we'll just do it at 1.9. I'll put my guidelines on. And then we have a double mat once we get these guidelines on here by going back with our selecting the background, and then you can select the entire background to the guidelines. So this is going behind our frame, and then you come up here and you select the subtract from selection tool, and since this is our top mat, we're going to make sure we're on the outside of this box, and then we're going to go to copy. So now we have a top mat, and you can just fill it with any color with your paint bucket. If you wanted a cream colored top mat, there you go. And then we want to come back and do a bottom mat. Now let's say do the same thing, select the whole to the guidelines, make sure you're selecting on the background, and go to the inside layer via copy. And now you want to name these, and you can click on it twice slowly. Well, maybe not too slow. You can name your layers. Alright, so now we have a top mat. Our bottom mat, we're going to make the color of the frame. So we'll just select some color of the frame and then fill it. Another thing you can do if you're planning on adjusting the mat a whole bunch is just go and select your top mat. You want to hold down the control button when you select the mat. Click inside here and it will select the whole thing. You can come down here to this little fill adjustment layer thing and then just go to solid color. So now we have a solid color fill adjustment layer, which allows you to change the color to whatever you want. So we can look at it like this, and if I don't like that later on, I can just double click on this and change it to anything I want without having to use the paint bucket tool, which can be fun, but typically I don't need that. You may for some jobs, but just an off-white mat is typically what I'll use. And now we have a frame, a top mat with a bottom mat, we have the actual size of the frame. So the outside is 17 by 21. It has a glass size of 16 by 20, so we can just hit Control and the semicolon. It brings back up our guidelines, and we can just use the rectangular marquee tool to say, okay, look, that's 16 by 20. Our window opening, you got to come back here and select the single, click outside of it. The window opening is 9.9 by 13.98. So when it's 9.8 like that, you know that it's pretty much round the number. So 9.98 is 10. So that's 10 by 14. That's your typical opening to a 16 by 20 with a 3-inch mat. About 20-minute video. Okay, I guess we could take a print and throw it in there real quick. Let me see if I have something. I'll go ahead and open my File Explorer on another window, and I'm going to look for a nice coral to put in here. Let's put a seaweed in here. So I can go to different images. There's two ways to add images. One way is to open it in Photoshop. Another way is to open up a panel and then or a new folder and go through your images, and I'll show you what happens when you upload it from a outside file. Let's see. Now I've got these. Here we go. So I can upload a large file, drag it, and then just drop it on here, and it becomes a smart object, which then I can change the size on. I don't want to get it too small. And then once I get it the size I want, I will move this underneath all the layers except for the background layer. So now it's under every layer but the background layer. And if I didn't like something, you can change the colors on these, but this is just to show a client a frame piece. One other thing that I like to do is this looks fake right here. You can actually add a shadow on your frame. If you right click and go to blending options, you can drop a shadow with the light. You can determine where the light comes from. Say it comes from down here. It drops a shadow. So you can drop a shadow on the frame. Just make sure it's very low opacity. See, now we have a slight shadow on the frame, and then typically I'll do a stroke on the bottom mat. Go to blending options after right clicking, go to stroke, and I always use acid free matte board. It has a white core, unless I'm doing something that doesn't. Now as you see, this is going in and it's leaving a rounded edge, so instead of the position being inside, we move it to outside. What that does is that gives us that 45-degree white edge. You can do that on the top mat too, and you can just right click and go to copy layer style, and then you can paste layer style, and it will do the same thing here, because you really can't. Let's see, I guess you can do it on a colorful layer. So yeah, and they have your little beveled edge with about 3 pixels, and you can show your client the finished product. It takes a lot longer than some other things, but once you have this pattern down, you can save this file and you can use it over and over again. And because you have the ability to change the top matte color to whatever you want by double clicking on it. It gives you a lot of options to just play with stuff that you typically would never pick out. Some things that would normally look horrible, it's interesting to see. Let's just say that. Alright, and that's it. Hope that helped.